Good morning, everyone. Mr. Cortina here today, Tuesday, April 14th. Today we're going to add fractions with unlike denominators. Materials you're going to need are a pencil, notebook, and paper. And as a reminder, pause the video if you need to catch up or go back to review. Look for these symbols at the bottom of your page to know what you should be doing and when you should be doing it. Today's target is I can add fractions with unlike denominators. You guys have had a lot of practice adding fractions with like denominators. For example, if you have a fraction 2/6 plus 1/6, you know that when the denominators are the same, 6 and 6, you can just add across the top. And that will give us 3/6. But today, we're going to work on adding fractions that are unlike. And unlike means not the same. Okay? So the important thing to know here is that when you have fractions, for example, that look like this, that do not have the same denominator, we need to change them so that we are able to add or subtract them. Right now we cannot do this because these fractions are showing different size parts. For example, if I have a tape diagram to represent 1/2, okay, you can see how big my parts are as compared to the total. And if I draw the other fraction, 3/8, I'm going to split my tape diagram into 8 parts. There's 4 on that side and 4 on this side. So as you can see, the size of the parts are not the same, therefore we cannot add them together. We need to change these fractions so that the bottom number or denominator is the same. I'm going to show you how we do that. Okay, so we start off by identifying that these are not the same size fractions and we need to change them. We need to find the least common multiple so we can make these two bottom numbers the same. So we're going to start by listing the multiples of each number. And you guys have done this before. And we're finding a common number that's the smallest of the numbers. So you can just start by listing maybe 4 or 5 multiples and see if you have a common one among the two numbers. So remember, multiples, we're multiplying, so or skip counting. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to try the 8. 8, oh, and I noticed right away that I have a common multiple, and it's the least, and the number would be 8. So we need both of these fractions to have 8 on the bottom because that's the least common multiple. Okay, and this one is already in the form that we need it, and that is divided into 8 parts. So we can just copy that down. We're not going to change this one at all because the denominator is already split into eighths. But when we look at the 2, we got to think to ourselves, well, how do we get from 2 to 8? What did we multiply by? 2 times 1, 2 times 2, 2 times 3, 2 times 4. So to get from 2 to 8, we multiplied by 4. And as you know the rule for finding equivalent fractions, whatever we do to the bottom, we need to do to the top. So we're also going to multiply the numerator by 4 to make sure that this fraction stays equivalent and we're not changing the amount at all. We're just changing the size of the pieces. So 1 times 4 is 4/8. So now we have two fractions that have the same denominator, which is 8, and now we are able to add across the top. Remember, the size is not going to change, and we just add the numerators. We have 4 plus 3 and we end up with 7/8 as our answer. Okay, we cannot get an answer if we do not change these denominators to be the same. And the way we do that is by finding the least common multiple, or the LCM. Okay, let's try an example together. So we have these two fractions. We have 4/5 and 1/2. Right away I notice that the denominator is not the same. Okay, so why don't you copy that down, pause the video if you need to, and we're going to work on this one together. Okay, when the denominators are not the same, we need to make them the same. And the way we do that is by finding the what? You got it, the least common multiple. So we're just going to list the multiples of the 2 and the 5. Again, we're looking for the same number. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, like I said, maybe start with 4 or 5 multiples, and if you need to continue, then you can continue. For 5, we have 5, 10, oh, and I'm going to stop right there. I notice that the 10 is shared between both the 2 and the 5. So what we need to do now is change both of these numbers, both denominators, so they are 10 before we can add them. We know this is what they need to be. The question is, how did we get there? So what did we do to get from 5 to 10? Right, we multiply by 1, 2. Whatever we do to the bottom, we need to do the top. So we're going to multiply 4 times 2. And what does that give us? 8. So 4/5 is the same as 8/10. And same thing for this side. Well, how did we get from 2 to 10? Well, we found multiples and we multiplied by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 times 5 gives us 10. And whatever we do to the bottom, we need to do to the top. So 1 times 5 gives us 5. Now that we have two fractions with a common denominator, we simply add across the top. And we get 8 plus 5, you got it, 13. And what do we notice about this fraction now? We ended up with 13/10, but is that how we leave fractions? Nope, we need to turn, because this is an improper fraction, we need to turn it into a proper fraction. So the way we do that is to divide. Well, I'm going to divide 13 by 10. Okay, 10 can go into 13 only one time without going over. And that equals, when we multiply 10, this is review, or should be review from last week's lesson. We're going to subtract, and there's 3 left over. Okay, so our new total is 1 whole and 3/10 left over. And that is our final answer in the correct form. You're halfway once you get to this step, but then you need to convert it into a mixed number because it's an improper fraction. Let's try one more together. We have 3/4 plus 2/5. And I notice right away that this denominator is different. We cannot add fractions with different denominators. So we need to find the least common multiple. We're just going to list the multiples of each number. Or as you're doing this with me, if you need to pause the video, please do. So we're going to list the multiples of 4 and 5. You just skip counting. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I got 5 multiples. Let's see what we can do with the 5. 5, 10, 15, 20. And I'm going to stop right there because I noticed that the 20 is what these two numbers have in common. That's the smallest one. We could keep going and finding more, but we want the least, so the 20 would be the least common multiple. So I know now that my new fractions are both going to have 20 as the denominator. Just write it right below. We're just finding equivalent fractions. And how did we get from 4 to 20 and from 5 to 20? Well, from 4 to 20 we multiplied by 5 to get 20. So we're going to do the same to the numerator. 3 times 5 gives us 15. And then from 5 to 20 we multiplied by 4. So we're going to do the same to the top number. 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, so now we are ready to add. We have 20 in both denominators. All we need to do now is add across the top. So 15 plus 8, 23. And our denominator stays 20. And what do you notice about this fraction? That's right, it's an improper fraction, so we need to convert it into our mixed number. So the way we do that is to divide. We have 23 divided by 20. Well, I know that 20 can go into 23 only one time. And there's going to be 3 left over. So our mixed number now is 1 whole, 3 20ths. Okay. Seems like a big fraction, but we can't really reduce this into any lower terms, so we're just going to leave it as it is. And that is our mixed number. Alright, it's your turn to try on your own. So here's your equation, 1/4 plus 2/3. Pause the video now, solve it, and when you've solved it, check back in with my work to see what you got. Great, let's check it out. You should have gotten 11/12 as your fraction when you add 1/4 and 2/3. We had to change the denominator to 12 because it's the least common multiple. And then whatever we do to the bottom, multiply by 3 to do to the top. So 1/4 is equivalent to 3/12, and 2/3 is equivalent to 8/12. And we add across the top. 3 plus 8 is 11. Bring the 12 over, and you can't reduce that into lower terms. It's a proper fraction, so that is our answer, 11/12. Okay, let's review our learning target. I can add fractions with unlike denominators. Make sure whenever you see denominators that are different, no matter what they are, you need to realize that you cannot simply add across. We do not add these together. We need to convert them into a common denominator before we can add across the top. Once you do that, then you add across the top, just like we practiced, and reduce it into lowest terms. Okay. Review this slide if you need help in solving your problems on your problem set. If not, you are free to go. Work on your problem set. Make sure to submit it when you're done, and we will see you tomorrow. Have a great day.